In this video commentary, I'm going to discuss a sequence which has been taken from Il Conformista, a film directed by Bernardo Bertolucci and released in 1970. The film follows the protagonist Marcello, a fascist agent who has been sent to Paris to kill an anti-fascist lecturer, Professor Quadri. However, the film does not employ a linear narrative. Rather, events and flashbacks are fragmentary, since they are dictated by importance and ultimately by Marcello's thoughts, providing a subjective narrative point of view. Different time periods are employed through the use of flashbacks, which break the narrative into different episodes within Marcello's life, and uncover repressed memories of traumatic events, particularly within his childhood, which have all led to his role as a fascist agent. The sequence that I have chosen runs from 24 minutes 7 seconds to 26 minutes 7 seconds. Directly before the sequence, Marcello and his mother visit his father at the asylum to obtain his father's signature of approval for his marriage to Giulia. He also interrogates his father about the methods of torture that he used during his role in the fascist regime. The sequence that I have chosen depicts Marcello and Manganiello, who are following Quadri. However, when Manganiello explains that they must kill Anna, Marcello gets out of the car. From this point to the end of the sequence, flashbacks of Marcello as a 13-year-old who is bullied by some other children and subsequently followed by Lino are interwoven in the present temporal plane.
Accelerate. Dottore, anche se arriviamo in tempo per la donna non c'è più niente da fare. Lo sapete bene. Non possiamo lasciare testimoni.
Fermate. Voglio scendere. A che serve andare? Andate voi.
Dottor Marcello. Ma noi dobbiamo esserci, abbiamo delle responsabilità, ma guardate.
Ferma!
Ferma!
E se no il verbale chi lo fa?
Aspira, dai! I cazzoni, sbottoni i cazzoni! I carabinieri! Dai!
Come ti chiami?
Marcello Clerici, e lei?
Pasqualino Semirano. Ma chiama Marino.
The car setting and journeys in this sequence are paramount, since they do not only represent physical journeys, but also existential journeys. They serve as psychoanalytical sessions that project the internal conflicts within Marcello's mind and uncover repressed memories. This is reflected in the car scene at the start of the sequence. The sequence opens with a medium close-up two-shot of Marcello and Manganiello, who are inside the car, while the camera is placed outside of the car, highlighting the role of the spectator as an outsider who is, as Wagstaff states, gradually penetrating through the windscreen and Marcello's forehead into his psyche. The medium shot thus enables the viewer to analyse the characters' emotions and reactions as they converse. During a car journey within a film, the emphasis is usually placed on the journey ahead, therefore the viewer might expect the camera to be placed inside the car, providing a point of view shot of the setting. However, the fact that the characters are in deep focus, while the back window is in shallow focus, highlights the importance of the conversation as a means of therapy and prevents the viewer from seeing the setting and becoming distracted by it. The long duration of the shot, which lasts 16 seconds with the camera in the same fixed position, also emphasises the importance of the diegetic sound of the dialogue in the shot, as well as Marcello's facial expressions. The eye-level shot in which Marcello is looking past the camera portrays the idea that he is absorbed within his own thoughts, and this is followed by his order to Manganiello to drive faster, presenting the outcome of this thought. The dialogue becomes extremely important when Manganiello then tells Marcello that they must also kill Anna, his object of desire, and we see his sour reaction to this. He abruptly turns his head towards Manganiello in shock and disgust, and this alludes to the turning point in the scene, since he orders Manganiello to stop the car and he gets out. The extra diegetic sound is also important, since there is a sinister tone to it, which alludes to the assassination of Quadri, but also perhaps alludes to the turning point within the sequence. This conversation can therefore be viewed as a psychoanalytical session which leads to a childhood memory resurfacing, as a result of Marcello's internal conflicts between his personal and professional life. Throughout this sequence, the camera movement and narration are presented as being dictated by Marcello's underlying thoughts and memories evoked, providing a subjective perspective of events. This is conveyed through a series of crosscuts employed between the temporal plane of the present and that of Marcello's childhood, which present parallel shots between both periods. This is illustrated in this wide shot which presents Marcello walking straight along the road, as well as the car following behind. The camera tracks and zooms to keep Marcello in the frame, and this camera movement alludes to the fact that Marcello is trying to escape his role as a fascist agent, since it conflicts with his feelings about Anna. The camera then cuts to the first shot within the flashback scene, presenting an extreme close-up of the exact same black car as the one in which Manganiello is driving, amongst a green setting. The parallels within the two shots are further established by the car movement, as opposed to the camera movement, as the camera remains static. The car moves progressively to the right of the frame as it is driven down the road, and the viewer can see a young boy walking on the left-hand side of the frame, in front of the car. This mirrors the way in which Marcello is currently being followed by the same car. The cinematography employed in this flashback alludes to the subjectivity of this event, and that what the viewer is seeing are snippets of repressed memories being projected directly from Marcello's mind onto the screen. For example, the black car in the introductory shot to this scene fills the entire frame of this extreme close-up shot, preventing the viewer from seeing any of the setting, as they would usually expect to see when being introduced to a new setting within a film. This creates a feeling of confusion on the part of the spectator, who must understand that this is part of the episode from Marcello's childhood that is being evoked in his mind by his current situation, in which Manganiello follows him, just as Lino did during his childhood. Therefore, the camera movement and shots are motivated by the storyteller, that being Marcello's mind in this scene. Therefore, the viewer sees what Marcello remembers from this flashback. This pair of parallel shots is subsequently followed by another pair of parallel shots, which present Marcello in both temporal planes, stopping the car with a hand gesture above his head, stating "ferma" before getting into the car. The only difference between these two shots is the character development. Marcello as a young boy sounds and looks more naive and innocent, since he politely tells the driver to stop, whereas in the present temporal plane, the tap of the hand on the roof of the car is a lot more aggressive and confident, as well as the way in which he opens the car and performs a kind of fascist salute arm gesture. The fast-paced editing within these interwoven flashbacks further emphasises the subjective narration and the sudden and dramatic surge of memories being brought back to his consciousness. The flashback shots are 2 and 3 seconds in duration, a very short amount of time, which only enables the spectator to gain a glimpse of the scene, as opposed to an in-depth knowledge of its significance. This therefore places more emphasis on the narration of the scene, as opposed to the full action within the scene. The use of straight cuts to change between temporal planes also creates a dramatic and abrupt change of scene, which constantly shifts between time frames, alluding to the dramatic and sudden resurfacing of memories, and the speed at which this is happening within Marcello's mind. The contrasting colour schemes and costumes within this sequence, which separate the two temporal planes, are important in conveying the meaning and development of Marcello. In the present-day scene, and in this wide shot, the viewer can see that the setting is misty and filled with black, grey and white colours. These dark colours and the pathetic fallacy convey a sinister tone within the scene and allude to the seriousness of the situation in which Marcello finds himself, as well as to his mental state in which he is conflicted between his personal desires and his professional duties, and therefore whether to proceed with the journey and the plan or not. On the contrary, the colours in the flashback scene are much brighter, with the emphasis on colours associated with nature, such as the greenness of the landscape and the trees, as well as the khaki, beige and brown clothing of the children and adults. The weather completely juxtaposes the present temporal plane too, since it is clear in this scene that the sun is shining and the sky is very clear. These colours and the pathetic fallacy in this scene encapsulate Marcello's innocence and purity as a child, who will later lose his innocence through his homosexual encounter with Lino and the assassination of him, which will haunt his life after and shape his decision to become a fascist agent. The costumes within these two scenes are also significant in helping the viewer to understand the social and historical context surrounding the time periods. For example, in the flashback sequence, Marcello is wearing a light blue jumper with a black hat and knee-length shorts, formal clothing for a schoolboy. This alludes to his wealthy and upper-class childhood, which leads to his social exclusion from the other children who bully him. The idea of him as an outsider amongst the other children is reinforced through the way in which the colours of their clothing are similar, mainly consisting of khaki, brown and beige, whereas his jumper is sky blue and his shorts are black. In contrast, in the present temporal plane, it's clear that Marcello is wearing a black suit and hat, as is Manganiello, symbolising the rigidity of the fascist regime through the fact that they are both in a strict uniform which has been dictated by the regime. This uniform also arguably alludes to the way in which Marcello is no longer socially excluded, since it symbolises the fact that he now belongs to an organisation, allowing him to conform to normality. The colour schemes and costumes therefore allude to the change in temporal plane and in Marcello's level of maturity. The symbolic use of light and shadow employed throughout the film is very prominent within this sequence, particularly during the car scene in the flashback. In this shot, the viewer can see that the sunlight is dispersing through the leaves of the trees above and creating a sort of striped effect on the bushes either side of the frame. The high-key lighting from the sun draws attention to the surrounding bushes, which enclose the setting and convey the sense that there is no place that Marcello can go to escape from the other children. He seems to become aware of this as he turns his head to the left, where the children have escaped to, and then turns back and signals the car to stop. The reflection of the leaves above, which shines down onto the windscreen of the car, also prevents the viewer from clearly seeing the driver. This adds an element of mystery to the sequence, since the viewer wonders who the mysterious driver is and what is about to happen when Marcello gets into the car. This element of mystery is also conveyed through the instrumental extra-diegetic music, which has an upbeat tone and creates an atmosphere of discovery, alluding to Marcello's self-discovery within the scene of the homosexual encounter with Lino. In this point of view shot, light and shadow are also significant because the viewer can see the reflection of Marcello's face, which is in deep focus in the back window, as he peers out to watch the children roller skating behind the car. The children are in shallow focus, placing emphasis on Marcello's emotions and highlighting the way in which he feels excluded and humiliated by these children and longs to be part of their group. Instead, he is transported in a car rather than on roller skates with the others. This means of transport in comparison with the children on roller skates perhaps also signifies the fact that his upper-class childhood and the wealth of his family have led to his social exclusion. To conclude this commentary, this sequence is significant to the film as a whole as it illustrates Bertolucci's deliberate depiction of Marcello's underlying psychological thoughts, as well as how the chronology within the film is based upon the association of memories in Marcello's mind. It uncovers the motives behind Marcello's desperation to conform to social norms and to be part of the fascist regime, since the spectator witnesses the way in which Marcello is bullied as a child and socially excluded due to the wealth of his family, and therefore seeks to fit into society as an adult by joining the fascist party. However, the sequence presents the fact that Marcello is still haunted by some underlying trauma from his childhood, that being his homosexual encounter with Lino, as we see later in the film, as well as the assassination of him, and this interferes continuously with his adult life